Okay, welcome to woody plant identification, part 1. We will be talking about trees and shrubs and some vines thrown in. Excuse me. So this is part 1 of a 2-part class. Part number 2 will be next Thursday night, same time, 5 to 6 p.m. But you do need to register separately for that class. And the link can be found on our flyer or on Facebook, wherever you found the original link for tonight's class. So they are 2 separate links, and you do have to register separately for next Thursday night's part 2 of the class. This class is usually done in person, and we usually teach this class at James Madison's Montpelier. So it's a totally outdoor class. Our first class is this presentation, just like we're talking about today. And it usually takes me 2 hours to go over this presentation. Link to part 2 registration. I will try to put that up towards the end of the class. So don't worry about this. Don't worry about that right this second. But it also can be found on our flyer and on our Facebook page at VCE Culpeper. Like I was saying before, we are recording. This recording will be sent out to everybody who registered. So it looks like it has definitely slowed down. So we have 247 participants tonight, which is amazingly awesome. And like I mentioned earlier, the slides will be available. They will be sent out at the same time as the recording link. And we will probably tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon, or on Monday. And like I said, there is a part 2 class next week, which will also be recorded and sent out to everybody who registers, if you cannot make it next Thursday. So it has definitely slowed, and let's get started. Hide the controls. I guess I'll hide the controls in a minute. There's a lot of folks still going. So let's get going. So we are starting very broadly, like I mentioned earlier. And what is taxonomy? So it's a scientific classification, not just plants. It helps to classify all types of organisms, so like bacteria, protozoa, animals. Insects, of course, are animals, but insects can be classified. So all kinds of different living creatures on Earth fall under taxonomy. So they're given a name basically. So sometimes called systemics. I always pronounce that one wrong. But taxonomy is an easier one to pronounce. That is the one I'm going to use. Groups plants very broadly to extremely specific. So we're going to see that in our examples coming up. And it is a precise method of organizing knowledge, but we will see in the next coming slides that a lot of this taxonomy was started back in the 18th century, so that would be the 1700s. And a lot of new research has been put into place, and a lot of DNA analysis has been conducted in recent years and recent decades, and some plants have been moved around to different groups and shifted around. So the terminology we're going to use tonight, including families and class and other terms like that, which we'll talk about. I'm using the USDA plant profiles, so you can type in any plant and go to their website. And that you can find their classification on the USDA plant profiles website. The easiest way to reach it is this: type in the plant of your choosing, type in your plant name, type in classification, and the USDA plant website should come up. Or you could type USDA plant website, for lack of a better term, into Google or your favorite search browser. So broad classifications would of course include woody plants, which we are going to talk about, or herbaceous plants. So woody plants are generally considered trees or shrubs, or plants, or another way of putting that, are considered plants to have a woody stem that stays above ground all year round. So leaves or no leaves, the deciduous or evergreen in the wintertime would all fall under woody plants. Herbaceous plants have top growth during the growing season and then die down, usually die down to only their roots or their crown in the cooler seasons of the year. Depending on where you're at, and right here in Virginia, it would be during the winter time. Maybe you have a wet and dry season. In the dry season, they would do the same thing. So woody plants generally stay above ground all year round. The stems, of course, there could be diseases, insect problems, but in general, the plants are going to be up above the ground all year round. So annuals and perennials. So annual plants, of course, would be, specifically speaking about our climate here in Virginia, annual plants would be plants we consider like pansies, which grow in the cool season. Plants like petunias or lantana. If you're a little bit further south, lantana, of course, would then be categorized into the perennial. Or maybe you're further out west, it'd be categorized into the perennial category instead of the annual category. It'd be an annual here, colder climate, but in a warmer climate, it would be a perennial. So we can see that come up with a lot of different tropical plants. They would be considered an annual here. Some of the banana trees you might plant would be considered an annual here, but in their native climate, or maybe a little bit further south, of course, they are perennial. Trees versus shrubs. The tree classification is a very interesting classification. Usually, trees are considered plants that have a single stem or a single trunk. Sometimes the term standard is used in that case. So that is a term you might see thrown around sometimes. And usually tall. But of course, shrubs can be very tall too, but they are usually considered multi-stemmed plants. So they usually have more than one stem coming up from the ground or branching higher up. And that's basically the best classification I have seen. I'm sure you could find other ones when you look online, but that is the best one I find when I research into these topics. And I will talk about a couple books coming up that I find very handy. So if you're interested in that, we'll have that coming up on a couple slides too. And then evergreen versus deciduous is always a very interesting term too. So we have two evergreens actually in my pictures on the left-hand side of the slide. So the top picture is a southern magnolia, and that is Magnolia grandiflora. So that is native to the East Coast from probably north central Florida to southern Virginia. Sometimes if you're around the Chesapeake Bay, you can get it to grow too. Maybe into a little bit into Rhode Island, not Rhode Island, but Long Island, I should say, maybe a little bit up that way too. But native to more warmer parts of the East Coast of the United States. And it has a very pretty flower like that, humongous flower. You can almost hold it in your hand depending on the cultivar you're growing. And then the lower left-hand picture is a mango. So if you've seen the fruit in the grocery store, you can you buy a fruit at the store, clean off the seed real well, plant it. The seed will sprout, so you could have your own mango tree. You'd have to have a lot of room for it. Mango trees get very large, but that is something maybe you could try with the kids. I know a lot of people do avocados, but mangoes work too. So that is something to try. But those, of course, would both be evergreens. It does go down for our next classification too. So the Magnolia grandiflora would be a temperate climate plant. And of course, mango would be more of a tropical plant. So lots of different classifications can come into play. So this is just our very broad classification. And like I said earlier, we are going to get more narrow as we get into the rest of today's class and especially into next week. We'll get very much more specialized and more narrow in our viewpoint. So if we go back to the original classification source, and this is the one people usually generally have decided that this was the starting point. So 1735, as you can see in the little picture, the little wording under his picture, and that is Carl Linnaeus, and he gave us our binomial nomenclature system. So we will be talking about that a little bit with an example, a very beautiful example of a tree that we're going to be talking about coming up. But it's a basis for classification he used structural similarities and differences. So like I said today, in most cases, they're trying to use more DNA analysis to see how related species are, or genuses are, I should say, sorry. Some people use those terms interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Back then, and most plants are still categorized in groups with structural similarities and differences. So we'll see that a lot coming up in the next couple slides. So rules of binomial nomenclature. So both names must be in Latin or Latinized. So that we have our little example of common time at the bottom right-hand corner, which we're going to get to in a second. Both are written in italics. If you can write in italics, you are very, very good. I know I cannot, but you can underline it like I do. So on the computer, you italicize it. If you're writing it out, underline it. So first is the generic name. So genus name is another term people use for that. Always capitalized. So that is a big important thing to remember. And the species name is never capitalized. So that is the second name that you see. And the generic name commonly is a noun. And the species name is usually an adjective or a noun indicating a location or maybe the person that found it. So Thymus vulgaris, that is common time. And vulgaris, if you do a very broad, dictionary definition of from Latin to English, means common, the common people or something similar to that. So kind of backwards. So our English common, that was not supposed to be a pun, but that's pretty funny. So common time, time is common. So this is the common time. So this is the one everyone grows with, usually cooks with. There are other species, other cultivars under common time you can find. There's lemon times, there's woolly time, all kinds of different ones. But in our example here, Thymus is referring to time and vulgaris is referring to common. Sometimes you'll see names or places. So like Camellia japonica, that was a camellia that was first found in Japan. So the species name tells you where it was from. You'll see a lot of say chinensis, and that they were originally found in China for the first time. Or Magnolia virginiana, so that is our sweet bay magnolia. It was found in Virginia for the first time. So lots of different, if you know what you're looking for, it can kind of lead you into what it is. And we'll see that pop up a couple more times as we go in the presentation. So categories of taxonomic classification. So this is what the taxonomists use just as a starting point. So the 5 kingdom scheme is typically used. These are cohesive units, all members traceable to a common evolutionary ancestor. So that is where taxonomy starts from, the theory of evolution. And plant kingdom is what we are talking about. So we will not focus on the others, but plants. That's what we're going to fall into today, and specifically more woody plants. So let's get going. We don't have to hang on to this slide too long. And you don't have to very frantically write notes. We will be sending out the slides to everybody who registered. So I double checked this classification system on the USDA plant profiles this afternoon. So this is the most up-to-date. There are some subclasses, subdivisions, but I did not put that on here. I think it makes it a little bit more confusing, but that is truly for true taxonomic classification, that is what you would add on here too. But for our example here, kingdom, plantae, division would be Tracheobinata, class would be Magnolia, Pisidia, I can never pronounce that one, sorry, I am butchering that name. Order, Thales, family, Theaceae. The common name for that family is the tea family. So if you did not know, the tea plant is a Camellia family member. And Camellia sinensis, if you ever drink black tea or green tea or any kind of tea like that, as long as if it's herbal tea, of course, another whole category. But if you're drinking black tea or green tea or white tea, you are drinking Camellia sinensis. So it is a camellia. And I always think that is amazing. And you can grow it in most parts of the United States. Even here in Virginia, you can grow it. It does like a little bit more of a warmer climate. But there is the only tea plantation left in the United States is near Charleston, South Carolina, and it's owned by the Lipton Tea Company. At least that's as far as I know. If you know of another one, please put it into the chat box. I'd be very interested to learn more about that. But the one in Charleston, South Carolina is a working tea plantation, which you can go to visit. So it's a very interesting tourist attraction if you go down that way. So our example here is the genus would be Franklinia, and species would be Altamaha. So the Franklin tree, that's what you're talking about here. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, I will have a picture of it in the next couple slides, and I actually have one growing in my backyard. The Franklin tree is a gorgeous tree. And Franklin Altamaha is a river in South Georgia, the Altamaha River. And that is where this tree was originally found by William Bartram in the late 1700s. Him and his son both were plant explorers throughout the southeastern United States and brought a lot of plants back to the Philadelphia area. And they have a garden up there near Philadelphia. I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. I know it's their home, but you can see the original, the original Franklinia that was planted there is still there, so you can find it there. Unfortunately, the Franklin tree is extinct in the wild, so you cannot find it in South Georgia anymore. William Bartram actually went back down there to try to find it again, but he never did. So all the seeds and all the plants that are sold today all trace back to the plant that the Bartrams planted in their garden in Philadelphia and found originally in South Georgia. There's a very interesting theory about Franklinia Altamaha. It actually prefers to grow in more cooler climates. Virginia and into Massachusetts are very good climates for Franklinia, and it actually very much does not like South Georgia where it was found. So the theory behind that is that the glaciers pushed it. The seeds were probably carried by squirrels or something else like that, and the plant found its range get pushed down to Georgia. And then when the glaciers melted during the last ice age, it was not able to move back north where it wanted to grow. So the Arnold Arboretum outside of Boston, Massachusetts, that is a very nice place. They have a lot of Franklin trees there, and you can see some very old specimens at that site. I bought the one in my backyard from the Monticello Historic Plant Farm, Tufton Farm, and that's where I got mine. It can be a little finicky. We're going to talk about Dr. Michael Durr's Woody Plant book coming up, and he states that in his plant description that it is very finicky, but it is a very, very beautiful plant, and I'll have a picture of the flower in a second. Okay, so orders, just a few more examples. So groups plants with similar characteristics. So Aracales, Includes azaleas, rhododendrons, camellias, and heathers. So all these plants typically like acidic pH soils. So you're going to see kind of a theme with those plants under that order. Families are usually grouped based on either reproductive flower parts, or they might be grouped based on leaf and bud arrangement, or these families might be grouped based on cultural similarities. So the tea family, Theaceae, camellias in that family, Franklinia, like we just mentioned, Gordonia is an evergreen member that's very closely related to Franklinia. It's also native to the southeastern United States, but it is not common in the nursery trade. So unfortunately, you can't find it for sale. It's actually still, it's not extinct. It is still in the forests of South Georgia. And Stewardia, oh no, we got a sneak preview. But Stewardia is a very, very pretty tree. Peeling, cinnamon colored bark, but it is native to Japan and China. It grows very well in the eastern United States, probably parts of California too, or more southern areas. I lost mine here in Virginia, unfortunately, to a late spring freeze event. But I do have a native dogwood in that place now, Cornus alternifolia, which very interestingly enough is the only alternate leafed, alternate bud arranged member of the Cornus family. So all other Cornus family members, all of their dogwoods have opposite bud arrangement, opposite leaf arrangement. So we'll talk, if you have no idea what I just said right there, we will talk about that in the next couple classes in more depth. So genuses, so our example here, Franklinia. So will cross-pollinate among themselves, but not typically with other genera. William Ackerman, I'll show his book cover on the next slide. He actually was a breeder at the USDA research center. I'm not saying the full name, but it's a research center in Maryland. And he bred lots of, oh no, they've done their sneak preview. But he bred lots of different camellias for more cold hardy climates. Some of his camellia varieties, including Survivor, which is a fall blooming white camellia. Oh, I keep doing that on accident. That is a white, I have that in my yard. It's a very beautiful fall blooming camellia. But all of his camellias can actually be grown in fairly cold climates. I know Survivor it can survive all the way up into Minnesota. There are cases of that camellia being planted in Minnesota. And if you're not sure what a camellia looks like, our flower here of the Franklinia, since they are related, actually looks very, very close to what a camellia flower looks like, a single bloom camellia flower. And Survivor actually looks very much like this. It has more of a pink tinge on the outer petals, but that camellia does look like this. Camellia sasanqua, that Survivor is a Camellia sasanqua. It blooms in the fall in Virginia. And Camellia japonica typically blooms in the springtime. So that would be March into April, which means it can be hit by hard freezes in our part of the country, unfortunately. But they're very, very beautiful. And I have not said this yet, but Franklinia has been blooming in my yard since middle of July, and it will keep blooming. It is still blooming, and it will bloom into early October. And this tree has been in my yard for 7 years now. It's growing very well, very nicely. I took this picture on a rainy day, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. You have the raindrops running down the petals. And that is what all the flowers look like on the Franklinia. And it blooms in late summer, which is kind of unique in our part of the country. We don't have a lot of native plants that are blooming. I guess technically it's not a native to Virginia, but it is a native to the southeastern United States. So it depends on how wide you want to use your native definition. But it's not a plant from Asia, so it is a plant from the southeastern United States. Absolutely gorgeous. Can be kind of hard to find the nursery trade sometimes. Like I said, I bought mine at Monticello. So, and that is Thomas Jefferson's Monticello outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. Beautiful, beautiful flower. Here's a couple books. William Ackerman's book, Beyond the Camellia Belt. That is one book. I own both these books. He talks about breeding, propagating, and growing cold hardy camellias. So he has all the different cultivars listed in there and all kinds of other information. There's a camellia flower for you if you haven't seen one before. Very, very interesting. He actually bred camellias with Franklinia, and unfortunately, the offspring are not fertile. So I don't think he ever found a fertile offspring between the cross. But it can be done since they are in the same family. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Michael Durr's Manual of Woody Landscape Plants, you definitely should be. It is a very, very nice book. Very big book. It could be your coffee table book. It is humongous. Very heavy. And it's usually only listed about, it is a textbook, so I think it's usually listed about $50. This is an older version. There's more updated ones. He also has a book, a woody plant book now that has more color pictures in it. This one has more hand drawings, which if you read the acknowledgments at the front, his wife drew all of the drawings in the book. So she was a very good artist. And he writes very frankly about the different plants. So it's a very enjoyable read. And the plants are easy to find because he lists the index, common names, and scientific names for them. Very, very good book. And the front cover is showing a Katsura tree in the fall. And Katsura leaves, Cercetophyllum japonicum, they have when they fall, they have that golden yellow color, and they smell like, some people say they either smell like burnt sugar. I personally think they smell like cotton candy. So that is a beautiful tree. It is native to Asia, as you get from the species name. But beautiful. It smells, if you've never experienced it, it really does smell very sweet. Cotton candy is what most people describe it as. Beautiful. Two great books here, though. There we go. Okay, so we're going to get a little more in depth. So I told y'all earlier we were starting very, very broad. So Rosaceae. So we have some family members here. So we have roses, of course, which the name comes from. But also apples and cherries and pears and service berries and almost all kinds of plants you can think of are in this Rosaceae family. So it's actually quite amazing how many different plants are in here. You will notice that most family members, especially if you live in the eastern United States or southeastern United States, they also get a lot of disease problems. So if you haven't already, from all the names I mentioned, they can get lots of disease issues. So this right here in the middle picture that I'm scrolling around with my mouse right here, this is, I always call it serviceberry, and the other name is slipping me right now. But serviceberry is gorgeous. The fruit is tiny. It actually looks like a blueberry. It's blue just like a blueberry, but it's actually in the Rosaceae family. It's more closely related to apples than it is blueberries. Blueberry is also in the Ericales family, so it's much more closely related to azaleas and rhododendrons than it is to serviceberry. So that was Rosaceae. So we got some sneak peek here. And then the words are going to come up. So redbud, honey locust, yellowwood, they're all in the Fabaceae family. So the bean family. So they all have bean pods as their seed structures. So redbud is we're talking more about the eastern redbud. Then a honey locust can be found almost across the entire United States. It was a very, very popular tree, especially the 90s into the early 2000s to be planted. Usually thornless honey locust, you do not want to run into a thorned honey locust. The thorns are humongous. And yellowwood is a native eastern tree, kind of finicky, but it is also, remember, it has gorgeous pea-like flowers. You'll notice most of these Fabaceae family members have pea-like flowers. Absolutely gorgeous. Then, of course, the bottom one is Ericales, if you haven't guessed yet. So rhododendron, heath, heather is in this group, in this family. I shouldn't say group because that is a different thing. And blueberry, azaleas, all kinds of different plants. And they typically like acidic soil conditions. That is one thing that groups them together. So over the next couple classes, so this one and next Thursday, what can we use for classification? So we'll be talking a lot about leaves. We'll be talking about flowers a little bit, fruits. You could also use bark to help identification. I know myself personally, I'm not trained enough to use bark. But trained arborists and other foresters can go into the woods in the wintertime, especially deciduous forests, and identify trees from bark. So that is a very interesting, always learning kind of thing. That's always interesting to me. You could use location. Is it on a drier side? Is it down in the wetlands? More of our Acer family members, our maples will be more, they like a little more compacted wet soils. Our oaks, especially our native Quercus alba, our white oak, will be up in the higher, drier sites. So location can help you out a little bit. Shape of the tree, is it tall and narrow? Is it wide so that can help out. Size of the tree can help out a little bit for identification. Smell. Taste, you can taste the leaves if you want. I kind of stay away from that one. So, but that is something you can use too. So we're going to talk a little bit about different things, a little bit about these topics going forward. So leaf terminology. So let's get into that a little bit. So we have a very, very complicated looking diagram that just popped up on the screen. So we have a simple leaf. So that is the terminology used, simple leaf down here. So that is all in the blue. So we have a simple leaf as a single leaf blade. The leaf blade is considered from the tip of the leaf all the way down to where it connects at the stem. And you will find a bud down here where the leaf attaches to the stem. And this bud typically will be the growing point for next year. But you have the whole leaf structure and the bud where it connects to the stem. So you have the leaf blade, of course, is the top part. This is the wide part, usually the part that's most showy. Midrib is usually going down the middle, but not always. We will talk about that going forward too. The petiole comes below it, right here. I'm circling it right this second. So that is the petiole. That attaches on the stem. Sometimes you have some stipules, not always. Sometimes some thorns can grow out of here. Sometimes the stipule is kind of complicated. So we'll talk about that more coming up too. But that is a simple leaf. Myself, I am a visual learner. We're going to have some visual examples and some species examples coming up about what are in the simple leaf category. But that is a simple leaf. So walking around, you will also, a simple leaf, real quick, for example, would be a maple or an oak. So they are both considered simple leaf plants. A compound leaf plant, in this case, in our example, this is a pinnately compound leaf plant. So pinnately means it basically looks like a feather. So you have this central rachis right here. Petiole petiolule. I can never pronounce that one. But that's directly below the leaflets. So you have the petiolule, and the leaflet is attached to that. The petiolule is attached to the rachis, and then that attaches to the main stem structure. So one important thing to take away from a compound-leafed tree or plant or shrub is that there are no buds on the rachis. So there are no growing points until you get to the stem. And this entire structure is one leaf. This entire structure that I'm circling in the orange, the orangish yellow right here, is one leaf. It has these leaflets, but this is considered one leaf. So honey locust, we already mentioned before, is a compound leaf plant. The other family member we talked about, redbud, our eastern redbud, that is a simple leaf plant. And yellowwood is also a compound leaf plant. A lot of people have hickories or pecan trees. Those are all compound leafed plants. Other examples, Kentucky coffeewood. If you haven't seen that before, look that one up. That is a very, very interesting tree. Huge. The entire leaf structure can be up to 12 to 18 inches long. And we're talking about the entire, that is one leaf. It almost looks like a branch fell off the tree. It's so big. When you examine it, you can see the leaflets, but the entire structure is a leaf. So this terminology is absolutely amazing to me, but and we will be using this going forward too. So different leaf types. So the simple leaf. So in our example here, we have our Acer rubris. This is our red maple, eastern red maple. So it's native to the eastern United States. And you'll actually see different leaf structures on a red maple. So you see this more compact, more lobed leaf. So in this case, it has one lobe here, so that equals 2. Another one here, 3, 4. This is a five lobed leaf. If you look up here, this is only a 3-lobed leaf. And you will find both leaves on the same tree. So those are not too different. So Acer rubris always has that. They'll have 2 different leaf structures on the same leaf, or different lobe numbers, I should say, instead of structures, not to confuse y'all. But this is a simple leaf. So you can see the entire leaf blade right here. And then the petiole goes back to the stem where you would find the bud or the node. I haven't used the word node today. I'm going to use bud, but node is also another word that it means the same thing as a bud. So that is a simple leaf. Single leaf blade present at each node. It says node on the slide, but I have been using bud. Node, bud can be interchangeable. And that's a simple leaf. Other trees that have simple leaves, American beech, birch, black cherry, that's an eastern native tree. Black gum, dogwood, elms, maples, oaks, all kinds, willows, sycamores, all have simple leaves. These are both native oaks. Quercus alba is our native white oak, and Quercus rubra is our native red oak. Quercus white oaks typically have rounded lobes right here. And then you see the sinus, that's what they call this right here. This is called the sinus. So the lobe is right here. They're always rounded on white oak species. But you'll see in the red oak, black oak also can come into this category, but black oaks and red oaks, they cross so much that it's kind of hard to distinguish sometimes. But red oaks and black oaks will both have pointed lobes. They will have deep sinuses still in most cases, but they will have pointed lobes also. So white oak family members, white oaks, whoop, we don't want to see that one yet. White oaks have rounded lobes, and typically, or actually I shouldn't even say typically, red oaks have pointed lobes. So a compound leaf tree or shrub, the blade's divided into those leaflets we were talking about before. So oddly pinnate means it has an odd number of leaflets. So box elder has 3 leaflets, and that is the only member that I know of, could be mothers, only member of the Acer family, of the maple family, that has a compound leaf. And box elder is in the maple family. It is Acer negundo, I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly off the top of my head. Kentucky coffeewood tree is an oddly pinnate tree. White ash, most ashes, not all, but most ashes are oddly pinnate too. Evenly pinnate examples can be Chinese pistachio, honey locust. Those are both, they'll have an even number of leaves. Bipinnately compound, mimosa, and that's albizia. Species name is slipping me right this second, albizia. Most people consider it a weedy tree from the east coast of the United States all the way out to California. I have been to California and it is definitely there. So you can find it across the entire United States. I'm not sure about the colder areas, but this tree is native to Persia, or Iran is what it's called today. So more than likely it can take some cold. So mimosa has a bipinnately compound leaf. So bipinnately is basically, so we have this central rachis here, and a bipinnately compound leaf will have other rachi coming off of here, off the main rachis, and then leaflets coming off of that one. So it's further divided. It's even more divided than this sort of example here, this Chinese pistachio here. Tripinnately compound is Nandina. Some people call that heavenly bamboo. It's not a bamboo though, even though the common name might say it. And it is tripinnately compound. So you have the central rachis, you have a little rachi that come off the central rachis, and then you have rachi that come off those. So it's even further divided, and then you have the leaflets after that. In a Nandina, the entire Nandina leaf can be very large. I know it looks like branches falling off the shrub in the wintertime. The leaves are so large. But this is compound. We just talked about simple. And these are examples of compound leaves right here. Ash, black locust, buckeyes, that's a very interesting category. And that is what they call palmately compound because all the leaflets come to a single point, kind of looking like a hand. So we'll have some pictures of that, I believe, next Thursday. If you want to look it up in the meantime, red buckeye, Eculus rubra, I believe. All Eculus, at least all Eculus that are native to the eastern United States are called buckeyes commonly. And Eculus the horse chestnut. Sorry, the species name slipped me. I almost said it. I know some of y'all probably did if you knew it. But horse chestnuts native to Europe, the Eculus native to Europe are called horse chestnuts, and the Eculus native to the eastern United States are called buckeyes. Hickories, sumac. We have a native sumac to the eastern, a couple native sumacs actually. And those are other examples of compound leaf trees. Nandina, great example of a compound leaf shrub. There are a good number of compound leafed vines also, wisteria, which Asian wisteria, definitely compound also. Honey locust, the scientific name's there. I always butcher that one, so I will not try to say it. But remember earlier we said this is bipinnately compound. So you can see the main rachis right here. And then there's another rachis coming off here. And then the leaflets are attached to that one. So just remember this entire structure is the leaf. So the terminology and taxonomy we're using, this is the entire leaf right here that I'm circling. And these little ones are the leaflets. Black locusts are native black locusts to the eastern United States. One leaf fell off, if you're counting the leaflets. So it's actually even though there's supposed to be a leaflet right here that fell off. But black locusts, you can see in our example here, it only has the petiole right here with first leaflet attaches. This is the rachis going up, and it has no more divisions. So this is a pinnately compound leaf, and our honey locust example on the right-hand side is a bipinnately compound leaf. Very interesting. I always think it's amazing to see this kind of things. Excuse me. Oh, I did have it here. I did have it. Palmately compound. So this is our Eculus rubrum, or rubra. I'm not remembering that correctly. I apologize for that. But this is our red buckeye. And the reason they call it palmately compound is you have usually 5 leaves. You have the leaflets going off in a kind of an arc here, and they all attach to a central point, and the petiole then attaches to the stem, and the bud is down here, where my mouse just landed, or my mouse rested. And that is a palmately compound leaf. Some plants, some herbaceous plants have palmately compound leaves, and Cleome, I believe, does. And that is a herbaceous plant. But buckeyes are absolutely gorgeous. We'll have lots of pictures in next week's class with buckeyes, different kinds of buckeyes. And they are some of my most favorite trees. They are gorgeous. A little bit about conifers before we wrap up for today. So our juniper, our common shrub type junipers on the left-hand side. Always interesting right here. These leaves come from the same shrub. So junipers do this kind of juvenile foliage right here that I'm circling on the left-hand side. And this is what they consider the more mature foliage on the right side that I'm circling. So this is the shrub maturing. It's not the individual leaves. So this leaf here doesn't automatically magically change into this. It's just the branches and the new leaves that it grows as it matures start looking more looking more like this. Some cultivars, Blue Star, I believe, and some of the more shrub type junipers, well, they just always keep their juvenile foliage, so you always see them looking like this. But that's what they call the awl, and that's like the woodworking tool, very sharp tip on the end. And then the scale-like leaves, what they consider the more mature. But like I said, some cultivars always keep the juvenile and never mature. Arborvitaes, there's lots of different species, but they are what's considered scale-like leaves. So that is one group of gymnosperms. Needled evergreens, pines, spruces, and firs. So pines are either categorized as 2 needled pines, 3 needled pines, or 5 needled pines. So a 2 needled pine example would be Pinus virginiana, Virginia pine. And when we're talking about different numbers of needles with pines, we're talking about the needle you find going, the needles you find going up that are surrounded when you get to the branch by the fascicle. So the little brown tissue that grows around where the needles attach to the stem is called the fascule. It surrounds it, and there will only be 2 needles coming up if it's a 2 needle pine. Loblolly Pinus tida has 3 at that point, And eastern white pine, as our example here, Pinus strobus, has 5. So it's interesting. There's 2 needle pines, 3 needles, or 5. There's no other differences like that. So if you walk out to your pine tree, if you have a pine tree in your yard, walk outside, pull off a fascicle. That is, I don't know why I'm giggling here, but I'm just having a hard time pronouncing it. But if you pull it off and you have 5 needles attached, then you have a 5 needle pine. You might have, if you're out west, not necessarily an eastern white pine, but if you're on the East Coast, it's more than likely an eastern white pine. So pines are very interesting like that. There's different species that are 2, 3, and 5, like I said. Spruces and firs have 1 needle each. An interesting thing with spruces and firs, spruce needles are sharply pointed, and if you have very good eyesight or a magnifying glass, they are square in shape. So sometimes it might be a little triangular, but they are square in shape, and you can roll them very easily between your fingers. And they're also very sharp and pointy if you put your hand out or your leg brushes up against it. And another interesting thing is that fir cones are held above the foliage, and spruce cones generally hang below the branch structure. And fir cones, they hang above, and fir cones actually shatter. So the seeds will shatter and fall to the ground, leaving a central stalk. And spruce cones, just like pine cones, will fall off intact onto the ground. And a way to identify firs also is that fir needles are generally soft and they're actually flat. So they're actually very hard to roll between your fingers. Firs are some of my favorites. Unfortunately, in the eastern part of Virginia, we can't really grow a lot of firs. I have a Korean fir in my yard. Not old enough to produce cones yet. But they actually, if you look it up online, they have bluish, bright striking, bluish purple cones. Absolutely amazing. And I can't wait till that one gets mature enough to produce cones. It's gonna be gorgeous. Lots and lots of different spruces: Colorado blue spruce, Norway spruce, Nordman spruce, Nordman fir actually, sorry, I got that mixed up for y'all. But those are the general spruces that are grown in our part of Virginia. Not very well, but they will grow here. And that's general for needled evergreens. There are other types, the cedars, which we'll talk about a little bit next week, are considered needled evergreens also. But this is what you typically find in eastern United States. You'll find these 3 different groups. A little bit about leaf arrangement. So there are alternate leafed plants. So basically, if we look at our lower right-hand picture, so this is American beech. So this is our eastern United States native beech. There's a European beech also, but this is our eastern beech. You can see there's 1 leaf attached here at a node. You go down the internode, and there's another leaf attached here. And that is why they call it alternate, because there's not a leaf directly attached opposite of this leaf. And that is where they get alternate. So these leaf forms, or all these species are considered alternately leafed or noded or budded plants or trees or shrubs. So pin oak at the top here. And then Plantus occidentalis, which is sycamore, I believe. I always get that mixed up, but I believe that's sycamore. And if you know it in the chat, just go ahead and put that, because I'm not remembering. We're getting towards the end of class and I already forgot. But I got 2 out of 3 right. You can pass most quizzes or tests with that. So pin oak here, American beech, and these are both considered alternately noded or budded plants. So opposite, some examples for oppositely attached or noded or budded plants. Most family members of most are maple family members, yes. Acer plantainoides, Norway maple, very good example of that. You can see one leaf here, petiole attaches right here at the bud, and you can see another leaf opposite of that node. There's another node on the other side of the stem with a leaf, petiole going up with another leaf on the other side. So they are directly opposite of each other, and that is what they consider an oppositely noded budded plant or tree. Viburnum acerifolium. This scientific name is very interesting. Basically, this is a viburnum with a maple-shaped leaf. So I always think that is very fun. If once you start looking into this, the species names can describe what the actual plant looks like. So you can see this here, one leaf on this side, petiole, one leaf, petiole, attached at the same point, one node on that side of the stem, one node on the other side of the stem, and they are directly opposite of each other. So horse chestnut, I almost said it, didn't I? Hippocastanum. So you have one palmate leaf on this side, one palmate leaf on this side, attached at the same point, one node on that side, one node on that side, one bud on that side, bud on that side, but they are directly opposite of each other. And that is what's considered an oppositely attached or noded budded plant. So there is a very good acronym for that, which I think I put left in for next week's class, which we'll go over. It's a very fun acronym for oppositely noded budded plants. Come on, mouse. Some plants are also whorled. So this is usually 3 leaves attached at the same point, going in a circular pattern around the stem. So pine family members are whorled, and most rhododendrons are whorled. Or I shouldn't say most, rhododendrons are whorled. So one leaf, or 2 leaves, 3 leaves, connected at a central point on the stem, and that is what's considered whorled. A lot of good number of herbaceous plants have whorled leaf arrangement, but you do see it from time to time. So this is just 2 examples here. Oh, I did leave the acronym on this side. Sorry for going over a little bit, y'all. We started a little late, so I apologize for that. I revealed maple already, but mad buck and vibrant cat. It is a good acronym to remember different oppositely noted plants. So the M, of course, stands for maple, or Acer AC. A stands for ash, Oleaceae, so that's the olive family. Dogwood is what stands for D, and that's Cornaceae family. Buck comes from Buckeye, and that's Hippocastanaceae family. Vibrant is Viburnum, and that's Caprifoliaceae. The honeysuckles are in that family also, with viburnums. And then cat comes from Catalpa, and that is a native to the eastern United States, and that is a bit in the Bignoniaceae family. So mad buck and vibrant cat. Sometimes you just find it listed as mad buck and vibrant, I believe, but I liked mad buck, vibrant cat. So that includes Catalpa. So very interesting acronym if you want to learn different. And these are all opposite leaf arrangement or attachments. Very, very cool. So ACAC to wrap us up. Red maple, of course. Box elder, like I said, is a compound leaf member of the Acer family. Aceraceae family, and sugar maple. Just a few examples. There's actually 200 plus species of acers. So, Oleaceae, French tree, Chionanthus, Has 7 species. Forsythia is in the Oleaceae family. Fraxinus, which is ash. The jasmines are in this family. Ligustrum, which is privet. Chinese privet, Japanese privet are in this family. And the osmanthus. The tea olives are in this family also. Green ash here. Fraxinus pennsylvanica. An ash that was originally found in Pennsylvania. Winter jasmine here in the eastern United States. Jasmine nudiflorum, which means a jasmine that loses its leaves in the wintertime. So you're seeing the summertime here, and the yellow flowers in the late winter, I should really say, and no leaves. Unfortunately, this jasmine is not fragrant. So for colder climates, it will grow fine, but unfortunately, we got the variety that's not fragrant. Lilacs in this family too, Oleaceae family also. So all the Syringia species. Cornaceae includes Aucuba, Cornus, of course, all the dogwoods, and Nyssa, which actually Nyssa has been put into its own family, Nyssaaceae, and that's the different black gums, different species like that. So here's Aucuba if you haven't seen it before. Aucuba japonica. Dogwood, Cornus florida, is our eastern flowering dogwood, our native to the east coast of the United States. And Cornus kousa is the Chinese or Korean dogwood. Of course, native to that area of the world, Eastern Asia. But those are both dogwoods. Here's black gum. If you're in Virginia at this time right now, you are seeing it actually already color up. It's one of the first trees that colors up. Absolutely gorgeous. And this picture right here is taken from the Virginia Tech campus in Blacksburg, Virginia. Oh, I have one in my front yard, and this tree is, if you've never seen one, it is a sight to behold. It is absolutely gorgeous tree in the fall. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Caprifoliaceae, Abelias in this group, Colquitzia, Lonicera, Viburnum, and Weigela. Some people pronounce Weigela differently. That's just how I pronounce it. So Japanese honey locust, Lonicera japonica. Beauty bush, Colquitzia amabilis. Very pretty plant in the springtime, non-native to the United States. Japanese snowball bush, Viburnum platicum. Hippocastanaceae, the Aesculus, there are some tropical members, but Aesculus is the genus we find in temperate climates. Horse chestnut, Aesculus hippocastanum, that's the horse chestnut. Yellow buckeye, Aesculus flava, that's a native to the eastern United States, very much so found in Ohio and into Virginia. Has this gorgeous yellow flower here, as you can see on the right-hand side picture. Here's red buckeye. This is a favorite for the ruby-throated hummingbird. Absolutely loves this tree. Very gorgeous tree. Red buckeye is one of my favorites also. Here's bottlebrush buckeye, Aesculus parviflora. That's native to more of the Carolinas area and into Georgia. Great fall color, great spring leaf color, and beautiful white shaped flowers. And that is it for day one. This sculpture I took a picture of, that was absolutely gorgeous with the ruby-throated hummingbird. So here's my contact information. Let me go ahead and check through the chat box. Okay, where's the question start? Oh, from Colorado. Wow. Let's see where the questions start at. And they started kind of far down. Oh, Georgia. Wow. Southern California. Thank you for joining us. Actually, apparently I scrolled too high. Okay, where's the start? Oh, thank you for putting the link to the flyer in the class. Bartram's Garden, yes, very beautiful. Oh, John and William, I think. John was the one, he was the father, wasn't he? Sorry about that, y'all. Juneberry, yes, Juneberry especially. Yes, red and black oaks both have tiny acorns, that is true. And y'all are very, very much welcome. I'm glad y'all attended. I see a lot of thank yous. Depends on what part of California you live in. Red buckeye probably could grow out there if you could find it for sale. But ruby-throated hummingbirds love red buckeyes. Bottlebrush buckeye would be what we would consider a small buckeye. So bottlebrush buckeye is actually considered a shrub buckeye. And it usually only grows about maybe 12, 15 feet tall. So it's not small, but you can prune it back. And that would be, it's considered a shrub type buckeye. Yes, red buckeye is native to the southeastern United States. Maybe a little bit into Virginia, but not much. But it is definitely native to the southeastern United States. And y'all are very, very much welcome. I don't see any other questions. If any other questions come up, you're welcome to email me or call me at my office. My office number there is right there. My email is right there. And like I said, you do have to register separately for next week's class, so you can't use the same link you used today. So hopefully I'll see y'all all next week. And y'all are very much welcome. I'm glad y'all joined us today. And paradise tree, I think that is a term we use here in Virginia for the tree of heaven. And those are considered non-native. Some people even consider them trash trees. So yes, don't keep that tree if you can. And y'all are very, very much welcome. I'm glad y'all joined today. And I said we might run into 6:15, so I guess we did, didn't we? So uh, hopefully y'all got a lot of good information out of this. It looks like y'all did. And y'all have a wonderful evening. And hopefully I'll see y'all back next week. Thank y'all for joining. And then go ahead and sign off. Thank y'all again for joining. Whoops.